We've got dueling scandals, financial scandals in the financial world, lighting up Capitol Hill today as well, with all of this other news going on. Both the House and Senate facing off against two CEOs of major firms, Equifax's Richard Smith, who's already resigned, and Wells Fargo chief Tim Sloan, who took over after his predecessor resigned at the bank. Senate Republicans and Democrats pouring verbal gasoline on Sloan after a series of scandals rocked Wells Fargo. Intraday, you can see it's moving higher, but boy, that stock has gotten hit. He was accused of promoting an anything-goes sales culture that led to millions of false bank accounts that ruined customers' credit.
The only way we're ever going to stop these scandals is to hold executives personally accountable, to fire the people who are responsible, and when they break the law, to march some of them out in handcuffs.
3 people, by the way, had been fired, 3 top people at Wells Fargo, just for that information. But former Equifax CEO Richard Smith also went through the ringer today as a House panel drilled into the company's massive data breach that exposed many of you out there, your personal information, because it was a total of 146 million consumers that got snagged. Outrage over the hack is at fever pitch, especially as 3 executives sold the stock right before news of the hack broke, sending shares plunging more than 24%. Ohio Congressman Bob Latta chaired that hearing. And Congressman, welcome. Thank you for being here. Congressman, did you leave the hearing more or less satisfied than when you had begun it this morning?
Well, you know, when we started, what we wanted to find out are the facts, and that was the number one thing we were doing in this hearing. And I think a lot of the testimony that you heard from Mr. Smith, you know, first he apologized for all of the failures, but it started almost at day one when one thing happened after another. And so that's where all the members on the committee really drilled in on and looking at what happened at Equifax, because, again, you're right, over 145 million Americans' personal data has been affected.
Congressman, Mr. Smith failed to commit today to making whole some of the customers who have either had their credit ruined or been hit financially. Is this the next step, or at least one of the steps down the line, that you in this subcommittee are about to take to make sure that people who were financially harmed will be made whole?
Well, and as we heard today, you know, what they're doing at the company, they're having it so people can freeze their credit and things like that. But again, we have to have more information as to what's going to happen, because, again, when you have that many people that are affected, and people don't even know that they might be affected right now. And some, as was pointed out by one of our members, that you've got folks that live in parts of the country that they might not have internet service. They can't get on to even find out if they were even affected to begin with. And so this is really what you might call the first step, because there's also going to be other hearings in Congress on this. But it was very important for us to start this process today, to start getting the facts out as to what happened at Equifax.
Speaking of facts, you know, it's really interesting. In both the Wells Fargo hearing and that scandal, along with the one that you were dealing with in Equifax, there were multiple warnings. In Wells Fargo, the LA Times basically gave Wells Fargo management a flashlight and a map to all of the wrongdoing and the scandalous behavior that was going on at the bank, and they ignored it for quite some time. At Equifax, you had cyber experts flagging them that there had been this hole in the particular software that was being used, and they even offered up the patch, which somehow neglected to get put into place. How infuriating for congressional members is that?
Well, you're absolutely right, because what you saw was that they were warned in early March that there was a problem, that a patch had to be made. You know, internally they were told they had to do this patch to get it taken care of. It didn't get done, and it went on and on and on until all of a sudden they find that, well, wait a minute, we've been breached a couple of months later. And so, you know, all the warning signs were there, and it was like their internal protocol, something, you know, what happened there, that it just seemed to just break down, that this information didn't get put in to make sure that the patch was done. And so we wouldn't be talking about it today if all this would have happened early on.
So I guess in the end, going back to my initial question, are you more or less satisfied coming out of it than you were? It sounds like you're not quite satisfied entirely.
No, I tell you, I don't think any member is, because again, when you hear this, it's incredible that all this could have happened. and nothing was done. And you're absolutely right. All the warning signs were out there. Yeah, not only were the warning signs there, they were being told to do it, but even internally or externally, that didn't get done.